who's doing the C1?
Welcome everyone to What the Fiction. This was a minor technical difficulty as we were getting set up, but welcome to our first live YouTube audience recording of our WandaVision coverage. I am Marie Claire Gould, and with me is Kyle Gould.
A little pause there. I'm Kyle.
Well, I was like, are you going to introduce yourself or am I going to introduce you?
We should have rehearsed that. We didn't. So
we didn't.
Welcome to our live stream.
Welcome to live TV, in a way. I guess it is. Yes. It's very classic live studio audience, except you are in your own homes across the world. And to start out, we would like to have a drink with all of you. Alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever you would like to have. This is a little bit of a party and an enjoyment of something that we are both enjoying a lot, which is the show WandaVision.
Absolutely. So, in honor of the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, I've invented 2 cocktails. They're not quite martinis because I just don't like really super powerful drinks. So, here we have a Scarlettini. This is 1/3 of an ounce of grenadine, 2 ounces of seltzer, and 1.5 ounces of cherry-infused vodka that you can get at any grocery store, poured over ice. And it's probably flat by now, but it's garnished with 2 delightful maraschino cherries. Because, just like Scarlet Witch, it's sweet but powerful.
Oh my god.
Yeah, isn't it? And then for myself, I made a Real Vision martini. It is normally, I'm using lime-infused Skittles vodka. So I took all of the Skittles, separated them into colors, and these are the last of my lime-colored Skittles, which you then infuse into the vodka, strain out the gelatin. It's a whole bunch of work, but it is super saccharine and sweet. And this has some seltzer in it as well, because I'm not super big on that. But it also has a rimmed lemon to reflect the Mind Stone in Vision's head, and it's poured over ice as well. So cheers, Marie Claire, to a great live stream.
Oh yeah, we already had our.
Oh, or as Paul Bettany says in almost every movie he clinks, chin chin.
Chin chin, yes. Well, you were calling out that was probably an improvised line because you've heard him say it like so many times.
So many times. Here, you can have a sip of this one since you haven't had it yet, and you can tell me which one you like more, because honestly, one's a little stronger than the other.
Well, that's like smooth.
Yes, that one's not a lot of alcohol.
That's very alcoholic.
It's like Scarlet Witch, one of the most potent mutants in the world. This is a powerful beverage here, folks.
Oh my goodness. And, I sort of need a drink after we kind of had a little bit of struggles getting everything going. I didn't plug the camera into the right plug, so
yes,
it ended up dying.
Died.
So, yeah, that...
cheers. You want to take it back? Or
yeah, no,
all right.
I like...
You like the strong.
Yeah, I like the strong one, yeah. So cheers to everyone who is watching with us now or listening to us later or watching later. Cheers to you. Thank you for joining us in our, I guess, adventure into Westview.
Yes. Yep. Chin chin to you.
Chin chin to you.
Oh, I forgot one last bit of the detail. Because he is Vision and he's green and yellow and purple, to chase a Real Vision martini, you have to do a shot glass with a piece of pickled turnip in it.
What?
There you are. So I'll be doing that at some point during this when I finish my drink.
That's just
I'm super excited.
I don't know. I just want to remind everybody that we will be doing these live YouTube recordings throughout the entire run of WandaVision. So we'll be here with you every Saturday at the same time. Technical difficulties or not. And we hope that you come out and join us and enjoy the show as well. The first 2 episodes for me were just absolutely wonderful. So to make sure to attend and be ready, make sure to subscribe, of course, on YouTube to the channel, because then you'll get the notifications that we're going live and all of that stuff, and you can see everything that's happening for What the Fiction, which is a sort of a new thing I'm trying to do.
Yes, since Disney also owns Marvel, might as well.
Might as well. I mean, okay. So, what did you think of WandaVision?
So we'll start with our overall.
Yeah,
statements?
overall, yeah. Before we get into.
True. Vision is one of my favorite characters in the Marvel universe. I always like androids. I feel that they get a bum rap most of the time. I feel about androids and robots in comic books the same way that Marie Claire feels about droids in Star Wars. If that's
very
any
weird.
Collection there, but I don't really care about any droids in Star Wars except for C-3PO.
C-3PO. Yeah.
Either way, Vision is one of my favorite characters. And I've talked about my love of androids and robots in the past on other podcasts, so I won't do that here. Go check out Whelmed when I'm on that one, because I talk about Red Tornado and Vision quite a bit. But nonetheless, Vision is one of my favorite characters in all of Marvel Comics, and so I've followed him for many, many years. I've loved everything that's been done, and when they added Paul Bettany as Vision in the movies, I felt that was the perfect melding, because he's one of my favorite performers and actors as well. Overjoyed to see this. So I was up Friday morning, 1 a.m., even though I had to work the next day, and it was a really tough day. I was there, ready, chin in hand to watch the episodes, and I laughed out loud, I cried, I shed many a tear, I enjoyed the entire oeuvre, the entire atmosphere, everything that they did. Every single insignificant detail was attended to with care and dedication, and it showed. And I'm overjoyed to get to talk about the quality of episodes that this show is going to be.
Yeah, and I did not stay up. I tried. I absolutely tried, and I fell asleep at like 12:30 or something. So
well, first you fell asleep at 7 p.m.
Oh yeah, no, it was a bad night. I was really tired from everything going on in my personal life. I fell asleep on the couch or something like that, and then didn't stay up. But you don't need to know about that. But I did wake up the next morning early for work and actually watched the first episode before work, and then the second episode kind of at lunchtime. And I actually cried out of like laughing and joy and like just the care and the detail that went into this show, because I care about these characters. And I wasn't, although I'm a comic fan of other comics and I've been collecting since high school, I wasn't really into Wanda and Vision because I never really got into the Avengers until the MCU came around, but I've loved them in the MCU. And I think that their total screen time together is less than 10 minutes. So it's kind of like, that's the chemistry that we had built on, plus the years and years of comic material that they were digging into. But what I love about this show right off the bat is not only the homage, not only the genre, not only the sort of building sense of tension and mystery that we are getting through the show, but also how it is a deeply psychological journey for Wanda. And so things that on surface may mean one thing to her may have another meaning, i.e. that Easter egg idea, but it could actually mean something else. And I was able to catch a few, you were able to catch a few, so to me, that's the important thing, is that there's actually a deep layer of symbolism and Wanda's psychology built into the world. And that to me, when a show is deeply layered or a piece of media is deeply layered and you're digging into it and you start to notice these things, it's like, I thought this cake was just a 1-layered cake. No, it's like a 4-layered cake. Yeah, and there's icing between all the layers.
And like super well done fondant on the top.
Yeah, and it's
every layer.
beautiful.
Yep.
The care and the love that went into the show just deserves, us talking about it as well. And that's why one of the reasons when I heard that this was announced and how interesting and different it would be, I absolutely wanted to cover it and give it the, attention it deserved.
It's so good. What surprised me most about the first episode is that we got Vision alone, going to work and doing his work stuff. I had thought that most of this was going to be from Wanda's perspective. Vision is dead. So the fact that we get to see Vision go off to work and do his computational analysis.
Is he though?
Well, Wanda's not there and she's doing her own thing. It's very clearly articulated, but he is off doing his own thing. So we got Vision screen time from a dead character. And that I'm interested in seeing.
So what does that mean? Yes, that's the question, I think.
I don't know what doesn't mean anything yet, but what is it telling us? Where is it going to go from here is what's exciting me.
Yeah, it's absolutely exciting me. Okay, let's dig in a little bit into some interesting things that we want to talk about. And you can see our little television set that we have right on the screen. So we're going to show you some things that we want to talk about as well at the same time. But you can still see us enjoying our martinis. We hope that you are also enjoying a drink of choice, a beverage of choice. All right. So let's talk about Jack.
Yes,
I didn't know Jack. You don't know Jack. I didn't know Jack until the show.
Well, because Black Widow hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And we should have had Black Widow last year, which is written primarily by, everything written in the MCU seems to be written by a team. But it seems to be primarily written by Jack Schaefer. At least that's where everything is said in IMDb. You would know Jack Schaefer if you watched Olaf's Frozen Adventure, which is that short Olaf-centric film, which was also written by Jack Schaefer. And then way back in 2009, Jack Schaefer wrote a movie and I think she even directed it, called Timer. And it was premiered at one of the film festivals and got a limited release and then pretty much got turned off. And I beg you to look for it because I can't find it's not on Amazon, it's not on Netflix, it's nowhere you can find it. But I found a copy of it and I watched most of it last night and it is delightful. And it was written by her, and I think that it's like a great piece to present from Jack Schaefer. So Jack Schaefer and Matt Shakman got together and pitched WandaVision at some point to people who have power, probably Kevin Feige and a few other people. There's
or
5
one of
producers,
the development VPs or something. Yeah,
somebody, and won them over, and that's why we got this. So thank you, Jack Schaefer. I'll raise my glass to you because if it wasn't for you, Chin Chin, if it wasn't for you and Matt, we probably wouldn't have this show.
Yes. So thank you, Jack, for pushing and being creative and doing this show, because so far, wow, what a show.
Absolutely. So Jack Schaefer is the same age as me, born in 1978, and her IMDb page is very sparse. But hopefully, based on the power of Black Widow and based on this show and coming up with the being created by her and then directing and not directing, I think,
she is
directed and wrote this episode.
She is writing, but she's not the the main director of it, which is
and then next episode 2 is written by Gretchen Enders, who I there's another person I don't really have any information on and where they come from and how did they get here. So thank you, Marvel, for finding these people that were not so connected to the comic books of the past and had written the comic books and have now created a new vision for putting this forward. So I'm interested and excited to see what Jack has to do next.
Yes, exactly. The other person I wanted to talk about is Christoph, of course, the composer, and he has just a wonderful history. I don't want to go too deeply into it. Maybe I will one day with Christy Carew, who's just she brought this to my attention, but he's one of those people that not only recognizes a problem and speaks about it, but also noticed a problem and put his money where his mouth is, literally, and created an organization to mentor diversity within the composing field in Hollywood. And I'm like that's what we need more of, not necessarily just people who talk about diversity and then do nothing, or put Me Too on a whiteboard and tweet it out and do nothing. That's what we need in Hollywood, especially in fields like composing, where I think there's only like 10% women composers, and not even that. It's like, and less than that from a woman of color composing perspective. And I'm deeply passionate about it, mainly because Christy constantly tells me about all of the different things going on in the composing field. And I want to just thank her for letting me know, as well as giving me so much information and knowledge.
On the same note of the music, that first theme song.
Yep.
How awesome was that? And of course, tying right back to more Disney and of course to Frozen, which Jack was connected to, is the Lopez couple, the power couple of music and Broadway and animated.
Doing the intro songs and the theme music for the episodes, which have just been wonderful.
The opening song is just so delightful. It still bips in my head. I don't know the lyrics yet, but couple.
Yeah, and part of the problem is we're going to be getting like a new one every time. So it's like, do we, we're going to like have like all of these in our heads rather than just like being able to hear it again and again. So I guess we'll just have to rewatch the episodes more.
Yeah, they're so dense, right? Like even the Chesterfields are differently. They're not just your normal 1950s style Chesterfields. They're always like, there's a little twist to them. They have a bend to them, and everything has an immaculately interesting pattern associated with it. Everything people wear and every fabric on the screen.
Lots of triangles, which is I noticed.
There's so many swirls and flourishes. Look at the shirt.
Flourish. Sorry.
You look at the shirt of Wanda in the second episode, and it's so detailed. Just delightful. Everything has so much attention put into it to give you something to feast your eyes upon.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get into the first episode of WandaVision, which I absolutely love the intro. It jumped right in and kind of told us, hey, there's a normal couple coming to this town and they just got married and they just arrived. All right. The first scene is really amazing. It actually has this, I don't know, it's very classic Hollywood 1950s show. There's a funny moment and then they make a quippy mark at each other. And it's all just kind of to set you up into this feeling like, oh, this is what we're doing. And then they bring us over to the calendar because of the note on August 23rd. And there's like so much speculation about what this means. Is it related to Avengers 238, which is a one where Vision comes back to life basically after being taken out by a magical field? Or is it related to the 23 Marvel movies that came before this? Who knows? I found something different, actually. So I did want to jump into this. And it actually, if you watched our preview episode, this is actually something that you blew my mind and you mentioned it. So do you want to just repeat?
No, I like other people saying the things I said.
Oh, okay. So Kyle, when he was like, I think Wanda just really wants to have her black and white Vision be colorful again. And so when you zoom in on the calendar picture, there's a little girl sitting on a couch looking at a television, and it says, all this little girl wants is a color television. All this little girl wants is a color vision. What? That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
But it's on the calendar. If you read it, I was blown away. And now I'm like, well, are people looking at the wrong things in this show? And yes, people can't, these things could mean the straight up Easter eggs from Marvel, knowing your canon lore, but it could also be that emotional drive and connection. And it could mean something just completely different. And that just blew my mind. I'm absolutely in love with all of the details of this show, and I found a few kind of other things, so we'll be going into those as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to put a date, if you're going to put a number out there, you might as well make it relevant to something, and then people will find it. And so, no doubt, they didn't just choose August 28th as just a random, oh, this looks good on the calendar, let's put it here. And of course, if you're going to have a picture on a calendar, let's put something relevant to there because we'll make it interesting to people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what's really important is the heart on the calendar.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And it all starts with, and I likened this one a lot to I Love Lucy, which is generally upon which everything else has flowed. Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. All of those, they really have Lucy as their foundational support upon which they've built, and they just added different things to them in order to make them interesting.
Yeah, especially the magical elements, giving it that kind of extra piece. Yeah.
And every movement from Elizabeth Olsen harkens to those three feminine protagonists from those three sitcoms. All of her hand gestures, the way she walks, the way she falls back into the boss's arms and then kicks a leg up is straight out of I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
Perfect stuff. Just brilliant chemistry from both Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen in their performances, in their roles. I want to come back to Vision in a little bit too, and Paul Bettany and what he does in this opening scene to establish himself.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking this thought, and I haven't told it to Marie Claire yet at all, because I do this. I'll say a thing to Marie Claire, and then I never, ever say it again, because I like to only really say things one time, even stories. So I have been thinking for forever now, every time I turn on and watch the show, Paul Bettany, when he is Paul Bettany and not Vision in the show, he kind of looks a little fake. When he's Vision, he looks real. And I was like, was that intentional? Or am I just not used to Paul Bettany in his early 50s?
Yeah, I don't know. It's
because he just looks a little pancake makeup and not quite.
Like when he was drunk on gum.
Yes.
In the second episode, it was like, that's Paul Bettany, because that's the Paul Bettany that we got in A Knight's Tale. And he was just hilarious and funny, but he also looked fake. It was weird. Yeah.
His face just looks a little flat, and when he's Vision, he looks real, which is this delightful, because that is the exact opposite of what is reality.
Yeah. All right. So, I did want to point out that like these episodes are full of tropes, and you can like search TV tropes, and they're actually starting to fill in the WandaVision tropes, which is, God bless the people that fill in these things, but there are two that I noticed that they hadn't updated yet, but these are primarily the ones to do with, the boss is coming over for dinner, and it is not something that we see usually in modern television anymore. It's just like people's bosses just don't come over for dinner anymore, especially during COVID, like, but also there's the George Jetson, I have to do whatever my boss says or I'm going to be fired trope, basically. And that's kind of what's going on with Vision in his office. But I do love that he's trying to explore, like, what is it that we do at computational services other than compute forms?
Yep. He's questioning.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, we have questions as well, and he gets to ask the questions, and then it's perfect sitcom flat character background responses, right? These people are flat. Well, we do computational analysis, and you're the best because you're a machine. What? No, I am an organic-based figure and form just like you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be like if... Yeah, it was perfect, and it was like if you imagine, like the Jetsons had an android that looked like a human trying to fit in, and that's exactly what would happen as well. And they do such a wonderful job of drawing the comedy from the audience is in the know and the characters aren't in the know. Yep. Yeah, it's great.
And that poor guy gets fired because he had a 5-course meal.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Not enough food, apparently. I do want to say, like, especially in the first episode, and that's why I think it's important that the how to keep your husband concept I don't know, like it's always this deeply misogynistic or, patriarchal. I mean, I think that that's like they're trying to plug into the feeling of the 50s, but I actually think that there's a secondary layer in that we know Wanda wants Vision back. And so there's constantly, and actually in the second episode, there's a little bit too, but it's more subtle. There's constantly this like, hey, how to make sure that your husband is still around. So it's like how to treat your husband to keep your husband, which sounds like a very innocuous, like, oh, Cosmo or, what this glamorous magazine, but
they should have called it Flourish.
Flourish. But it's very much the problem of the show, which is we know as the audience that Vision is no longer in this living realm, or so we think. So how to treat your husband to keep your husband, the husband issue. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think that things are, face value in a way. They're telling us, but they're not like telling us.
Exactly.
Which is awesome.
Yep. They're telling us, hey, the point of this show is that Vision is here. Yeah, you want to keep him. This is what you're going to need to do to keep him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to go do these things. He's got his questions. He may be just computational analysis may be a way of showing that he's putting himself back together, right? They're doing all of the work to get all of the neurons in the proper places to become Vision again.
Yes.
Which is quite possibly our nice background, but it's just conjecture at this point. But
we shall speculate.
I had a point I was going to and I totally lost it. It's totally fine. It's good stuff. These drinks.
Yep. All right. So then before we have the dinner party with the boss, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, we have this very weird commercial about the toasters. And out there on the internet, everyone's like, it's a bomb. It's the Sokovian bomb.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Oh,
if you don't mind, we're just going to go back to that last point. Because how to treat your husband to keep your husband is very important to note. Wanda doesn't have a job because she's a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife who takes care of the house and keeps it immaculate. And she stays in an immaculate state herself, always in the perfect dress. Her makeup is perfect. Her hair is coiffed. Everything is perfect. And of course, we know that's not effing possible. And the only people who can do that are superheroes. So I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, and now WandaVision show us that if you want to have the perfect house, the perfect life, the perfect wife, then you need to be a superhero.
You need to be impossible.
Yes, you need to have magical powers because no one is able to do that. That is movie Wanda magic.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
that was your point. Okay.
Yeah, that was my point. It was just hearkening to those three things.
All right, on to toasters.
Yep.
So everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's a thing about Sokovia and the bomb and what caused her and her brother to push themselves to be experimented upon by Strucker and Hydra to become basically super powered individuals." I forget what they call them in the movie itself. It's Age of Ultron is when they're introduced. I actually don't think that that's what's being said. I think it's maybe being said on some level, but I actually think that there's another level. So how they specifically word the commercial is really, really interesting. They talk about, is your husband tired of you burning his toast? Okay. Why don't you try this new Toastamate 2000 by Stark Industries?
Not only that, but you have to then go from that old toaster in your old house to this new house with a new toaster.
Yeah, it's a brand new house. And like everything is new. Okay, that's interesting. And also there's a time element. There's a ticking clock associated with it. We're running out of time. There's some other elements to do with that. And I just want you to look at the toaster in the bottom corner. That toaster looks like a person. It has a face.
Okay.
It literally looks like a robot. Yeah. And I'll get into it later with my theories, but I think that there's several layers happening in this show, especially with the commercials. This one in particular, I think I know what's going on, but just think about how much this toaster looks like a face.
Or maybe that Stark Industries is rebuilding Vision right now as we speak for
Yeah.
you, Wanda. And don't worry.
Yeah.
And as well, he's a newer model of Vision because we're Stark Industries and we can't do anything twice. And also, then he's not quite toasted yet, so we just have to wait until the timer's done.
Yeah.
Lastly, I don't know why they put a timer on it because literally the numbers that on your dial on your toaster, that's actually a timer. So if you set it to 2, that's 2 minutes of toasting. Just a little tidbit there for you.
Yeah, if you never knew what the numbers on your toaster meant.
It means how many minutes do you want it toasted for?
All right. Yeah, I just want to shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Hart, who are 2 amazing actors. She's from That 70s Show. She was the mom there. Kitty, she was amazing. I don't really know where Fred is from. I didn't look him up specifically, but I just loved, like, they played their like boss and like caring wife like perfectly.
He looks so much like Leonard Malkin, the film critic.
Oh, really?
I kept mistaking him. I'm like, no, that's not him. That's an actor.
That's not Leonard Malkin. No.
He's delightful. He's great as the boss, and she's perfect. She's perfect as the boss's wife. Supportive, helpful, little judgy.
There's nary a pig in a blanket here.
No tidbits.
No tidbits.
I'm woozy.
I sense a domestic emergency. Oh my goodness, yeah. It's just so funny and like cliche, but like also like that's part of like playing into the camp and what they're trying to establish with the show.
And just like the reality of how amazing Vision is when he just pulls a ukulele out of nowhere and then plays it perfectly.
Oh.
And they play Old MacDonald.
Yeah, exactly. And I also loved how the cover up, like they're very good at the cover up and they do it like all the time in the show, but so cozy and greedy. It's like, oh yeah, okay.
And that's a real 1950s thing too. Like, you're different. Oh, you're European, right?
Yeah,
that's a real 1950s cliche. And it's fun. I mean, it's sad that we're using her heritage as the butt of a joke, but that's what they did in the 50s. So I'll let it pass. And also, Sokovia's made up, so it's fine.
It's an imaginary place.
Yeah, it's not
that is. I mean, the main capital is half destroyed, and I don't know.
Finish my drink.
You finished your drink. Oh no! Oh, how was that?
Delightful.
Okay.
A real Vision.
I did want to point out this line because occasionally the show seems to be doing the touch nose. Are you paying attention to what we're saying? And it's not just a throwaway line. And so Vision, following up on his conversations in the office, trying to figure out what computational services does, we monitor the input and the output. Okay. So if this is all, the ghost in the machine or some sort of simulation that has been created, the input and the output would be important to understand. It's like, okay, what is coming in, what is coming out, and how do we make sure that people are not understanding exactly or that we're able to maybe delay, hassle, stall as long as possible. Oh, you turn the forms on the side, so it takes longer and we can charge more. Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting stuff there. And Vision's just like, huh? And Mr. Hart is like, I thought you were smart. It's like, okay, what's going on, show?
Yeah. Oh, and in that scene there too, did you see Wanda give Vision Thor's hammer?
Yes. Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's brilliant. So the tenderizer.
I know. And bam.
where's the tenderizer? I'm looking at him. And it was like a little mini Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
delightful.
them.
And Claire just commented down below. She's like, didn't they call Vision a toaster at some point during? I mean, they probably did.
I think they did.
Usually
Yeah.
something people call someone, especially Tony Stark.
I was Googling it to be like, this is my theory, but I didn't quite find it. So I was like, Tony probably called him, he's a complex toaster at some point, or Jarvis a complex toaster. And at one point during the dinner party too, Mr. Hart calls, you're not quite as square as I thought you were. And he's like, no, I'm round. And it's like, that's a callback to when Jarvis was conceptualized in the computer and he looked like a ball. Like all of this stuff is layered in there. It's just so good.
And just like anything, if it wasn't intended, you can still find it.
I love the dinner party in general. There's several shots of it, like Vision singing yakety yak while Wanda's like doing her magic in the kitchen, trying to make dinner. And then also playing the ukulele, which he plays Old MacDonald, and Mr. Hart's like, I'm not playing, but Mrs. Hart is like, yeah, let's do it. I love that so much. And then of course, the pineapple gag with Agnes. We'll get into Agnes in a little while, but I really loved the line, good news costs more, just because it's like, yeah, what is the cost to this experience that they are going through? Yeah, really cool stuff. Yeah. Okay, so the wine that pours itself magically, of course, because it's Wanda. It says Maison de Mépris, which is translated to House of Contempt, but is also a plug or an Easter egg to the House of M, which is a Marvel series that ran effectively special event where Wanda broke reality kind of out of grief to try and bring people back to her that she loved and were gone.
Created a whole new world.
A whole new world. But that doesn't look like what's happening here necessarily. It is sort of, but the world we know.
Let's save what's happening here for the very end.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we'll keep you in suspense until the end, and we both conjecture at length as to what we think is really going on.
What is going on here? Yeah. I also thought this moment was really, really poignant. So it's the dinner party, and Mr. Hart starts to choke, and Mrs. Hart is like on a loop, like, stop it. And it's she's in like this broken loop and doesn't know how to get out of it. And Vision is very confused and doesn't know what to do and is deeply uncomfortable. And Wanda has to make a choice, and she's like, Vision, help him. And he immediately goes and uses his powers to pull the thing out of it. And then it's the experience of something's not quite right here again, because it went from typical sitcom to very dark Twilight Zone like experience. Everything's not quite right, and then suddenly it is. It goes instantly back to, it's getting late, we gotta go. And just these wide brushstrokes to push over the things that are obviously not working or not right in the world. And I find that the beats and the timing of that was wonderfully done. When we watched it with our kids, they were both like, what is going on?
They were riveted.
They were riveted by this show. So that is always a bonus for us, because then we get to watch it together as a family.
Was that a sausage he was choking on?
Yeah, because she had breakfast sausages.
It looked like a little round thing though, it was just didn't quite look like a sausage.
Yeah.
But then again,
yeah, who knows?
It was in his throat, so.
But I do think that the switch to the eerie and the unknown was really well executed. Yeah.
Also, using your powers to save the day. I mean, he used his powers to walk through a chair earlier, so he didn't, drop his wife through the door again. This episode was the boss comes home for dinner, but at the very end we realize, this is the marriage of Vision. You found him. Let's keep him.
Yeah. Okay. I love that this was filmed in front of a live studio audience. They talked about it in several of the interviews, but it was honestly genuine at the two awe moments. So when the rings appear and we get the awe, and then when they kiss at the end, closing credits, we also got an awe and like clapping and like oh, like just absolute joy at the love of these two characters. And I just want to say, like, that is so appreciated because it's not something that is, it feels rarer nowadays in the world of grimdark or in the world of, oh, superheroes have to be super gritty and have to have terrible lives and the sacrifice is everything in their lives, instead of hey, superheroes can also have lives, maybe a little bit more like the Incredibles, and they deal with normal things too. And also, they deserve to have happiness as well.
But I cannot wait for episode 7 or 8, maybe somewhere around there, where I think at the very beginning, they're going to say, WandaVision is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Oh, yeah,
at the very beginning.
That was like
That was a big thing in the 80s and 90s, right? So I'm hoping that happens, and then we'll be like, who is this audience?
Who is the audience that this is being filmed in front of? Yes, exactly. And oh man, can you imagine the NDAs that all those audience members had to sign?
A lot of times they're just people that are already on set, grips and key grips and whatnot. Like in How I Met Your Mother, a lot of the laughter that we sometimes hear on there is actually just the cast, the cast and crew that are watching, laughing and enjoying the production.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. How do you become a studio audience member in a Marvel sitcom?
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. This is the end shot just before the credits start. The actual credits, not the in-show credits. You did do some research and try to find who the names are on this. There is some cool stuff in this shot, which is we have a hand. It's obviously a female hand. Many people are speculating this is Darcy from, of course, the Thor movies, because we know that she's going to be in the show. There's the symbol of sword not only on the monitor. We'll go into sword versus shield in a little while. In Conjectureland. But it also looks like the entire show is being monitored. She is taking notes. There is a fair amount of data being collected, and of course switches and toggles and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on this end moment? Or you looked into the names, right?
I looked into the names, and the only one that is connected at all, I mean, Babs Digby is not somebody I could find. I tried to do some anagramming, couldn't find anything there. I looked at their initials to see if I could spell something out, and that didn't give us anything. But Abe Brown is one of the names in there, and that's an actual character from Spider-Man. He is one of the people who's part of the decathlon, the mental decathlon, math decathlon. Whichever that was that they went to DC on, the guy, one of the kids that gets to wear the yellow coats, and he's always the one who's pushing the button and making a joke when they're like, that was false. And he keeps getting reprimanded by the teacher. That's Abe Brown. So I'm hoping it's just a coincidence, but nothing ever is. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see that he's connected to this in some capacity.
Well, he could be one of the kids that actually aged up and is actually now working for this organization. Yep. And that would be like another one of those, they really do think about all of the tendrils and the threads that exist, which would be cool.
No loose threads in this tapestry.
On to episode 2, which I loved the intro so much. There's actually a lot to dig into. There's people that have broken it down. You don't need to hear that here. I did notice one thing that I don't think anyone else will notice, but I'll bring it up at the end in the speculation kind of theory area. But I just loved it. It was classic Bewitched. And I mean, Bewitched is what inspired me when I, got an animator to create our animation intro. Because I was like, I want to be an animated character from my own show. And it's totally worth it. It was lovely. And this not only was the Lopez's amazing theme music just perfect, but also, you know, the Westview like sign or whatever that says like, you know, home is where you make it or something like that. Like it's all plugging into the same theme, which is forward facing, and this is the new, which I also love.
WandaVision and Westview are the same.
Yeah.
I think that's almost deliberate.
I'm sure it is.
Yes.
With everything else that seems
Although
super deliberate.
Westview is also the left, the house on the left, the west view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also Westview facing is also nicer with the setting sun and whatnot too. But
it's kind of like Pleasantville.
Yeah, in many
feel.
ways.
Yeah.
But who lives in the house on their left, not their left, her right?
Aunt Agnes.
Exactly. So we'll have to come back
sorry,
to that
not
too.
Aunt Agnes. I mean Agnes.
Yes.
Oops, spoiler. All right. I loved the classic I Love Lucy open where they have separate beds, and it's like, you know, talking about the it's kind of showing the change in society when they went from, oh, you cannot have, you know, your husband and wife sleeping in the same bed on television. That's like, oh my God. I don't know how people thought people had children, but it's kind of showing that change just in amongst that scene. We're also introduced to something is not quite right in the lives and in Westview with the banging noise that is presented throughout this episode.
I wonder when people started to sleep together. I mean, they slept apart for so long because mattresses good quality mattresses could be made in like larger scale sizes. I would love to talk to some anthropologist to tell me when did we move and when did we make this social shift? Was it technology or
I think demand? That this is like a I have money and I can afford 2 separate mattresses and my husband rolls around a lot.
I don't know if it was that.
I don't know.
Or if it's I have money and I have one big mattress for my wife and I to cuddle all night on.
I don't know.
Whose arm can handle that? So.
No.
Now I need a big enough bed to be nowhere near my wife when I sleep. Right? I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I snore, so.
Yes.
That's the problem.
You need a weighted blanket and a heated blanket and like 1,000 pounds of comforters. And I'm like, just give me a light sheet. So it works out really well.
Yeah. I'm basically like in a blanket fort every night. Like
every night.
Yeah. That's what's going on. I loved the introduction of the magic show. Like, this is what we're contributing to the neighborhood. And then the Cabinet of Mysteries. Wait, did you say the Cabinet of Mysteries? Like, the whole gag was just wonderful. And then, you know, of course, the shot to the Mind Stone, which is the stone that's in the top of Vision's forehead.
On the wardrobe itself.
On the Cabinet of Mysteries. Flourish. I love that so much because it's like, is there something more there, or is it just aesthetic to say this is what the focus of the world is? Or I don't know. There's more questions.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Nick?
I really liked this episode. I think this is the episode it does it, where Vision puts a sweater on and then spends time doing the buttons up, and like it was a lot of buttons, and it was a shifty thing that he had to literally put on and work his best finger magic to do.
That was while he was explaining that he wanted to go and join the neighborhood watch, and Wanda's like, "Yep, you watch out for those tree branches." Like it's so snappy and good, and it's interesting because we see him like in this scene and in the later scene with the neighborhood watch, even though they don't do any of watching or neighborhooding really, he's kind of in this like his typical mode, which was with the Avengers themselves. He was sort of like the security force of the Avengers complex. That's what we've seen him, especially when Clint tries to take Wanda in Civil War to go join Captain America. He's like, no. But of course he can't stop Wanda.
No one can stop Wanda.
Yeah.
She only stops herself.
She only stops herself. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep that in mind.
Well, that is a through line throughout all of the years of Wanda.
I know.
Wanda's only problem is Wanda.
Yeah. And she's always like knocked out and like just yeah. How do you deal with Wanda? You knock her out. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we get introduced to a little bit more of the mystery, which is the banging again, and this like it sounds like they do something amazing with the sound design. It sounds like a helicopter one moment, and then it sounds like a lawnmower, and they just do a really good job of like, yes, something is switching in the world and making it seem like not what it actually is.
That banging was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still don't like the sound of it. It would still make me want to cuddle under the bed and not go investigate.
And so the helicopter, of course, which she finds in the bushes, is brightly colored red and yellow. And she's like, what is this? And of course we see...
like Iron Man red and Iron Man yellow.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about that. And the symbol of sword on the front of it, of course, yeah. And then just then we have Agnes stroll up because they're going to the talent show for the children planning committee.
Yes. So let's talk maybe about Agnes at this point.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
So Marie Claire's been telling me Agnes is really Agatha Harkness, and I was like, are you sure? I mean, it's possible, but
who's Agatha Harkness?
Fair. Who is Agatha Harkness? Agatha Harkness is one of the primordial witches of Marvel Universe, and she's usually involved in any of the magic-related craft stuff, especially anything that's related to witchery and especially some of the stuff that relates to the devil and Mephisto, Mephistopheles at times too. Although I feel like Marvel uses those interchangeably, but nonetheless, anyway, Mephisto is largely the one that she's connected to. She's helped Wanda a whole bunch in the past, and there is
kind of like a mentor too, right?
Terribly depressing storyline between Wanda and Vision's kids, and Agatha that I don't want to say anything about. You can go read it on Wikipedia easily yourself, and I don't want it to color what may come in the shows to pass.
They're already changing serious aspects.
I know, but I don't want, even if you know, like, you know, predisposed knowledge will set a predisposed condition of thought, and I would rather you walk into it thinking like, oh, this person is more powerful and more connected and more mysterious than I was led to believe, and that's all you should really know about Agatha. But what is clear,
she is a magic user and she's a witch.
It's clear that Agnes is Agatha Harkness, because if you shorten the name all up, Agnes, Agatha Harkness, Agnes. So that's an easy connection right there.
And she's called Aunt Agnes. Sometimes.
I don't think they've called her Aunt Agnes yet, but we've seen Aunt A's brochures and pamphlets with a cat for kitty food. Yeah. And then she has a rabbit. Yep. That she calls
Senior Scratchy, who and her son Agatha Harkness's son in the comics is called Nicholas Scratch.
So she's turned her son into a bunny. Or it's just to help further cement to those who know, this is in fact Agatha Harkness. Yeah. And she's very important as a mentor, confidant, and guide for Wanda to help her get through her problem and become better at what she does. So...
how to treat your husband to keep your husband.
Yeah, how to goose your wife to not lose your wife.
Yes, and her anniversary, June 2nd, with Roger? Roger is her husband. Fred?
Yes. Which is interesting because he calls his wife Fred at one point in the first episode. She names her husband's name is Fred. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna put my
Roger.
I'm gonna put my 50 cents down.
We're never gonna see him?
That we will never see Agnes's husband.
Yeah.
The entire show. He will be a running gag and we will not see him in the show.
But their anniversary, June 2nd, is the first time, June 2nd, was when the Salem witch trials actually convicted the first witch. And in the Marvel runs, at some point, Agatha Harkness was actually in Salem during that period of time. So there's a lot of they're just kind of checking the boxes to let people know in the know that this is the person that is the person. And in the trailers, we see her in a witch hat. So it's like they're just
Well, that's
layering...
in the Halloween episode. She wears a witch's hat, but she also wears that black brooch with the white sort of stylization on it. That is very reminiscent of the brooch that Agatha Harkness is always seen wearing.
I wore a costume jewelry, a pin.
Nice.
In honor of
I wore my hat
Agatha.
and the time I wanted to vision up if I could. This is the best I could do. One other one that was really interesting to me is when she appears at the front door with pineapple for the upside down pineapple cake.
Yeah.
She's wearing a black capelet, and that is very reminiscent of the sort of style of Agatha Harkness.
Yeah, and it's only for a quick moment when she shows up and then is gone.
She never wears that capelet ever at any other point, just to deliver a pineapple.
Yeah, just to deliver the pineapple, but yeah. All right. Let's talk about Emma Caulfield Ford.
Yes. I love that she's not a bad guy.
Is she not?
She's not. She's the one that gives them the award. She's the one that says, you did it.
I'm not so sure.
She's not a bad guy.
I think we still have to wait to find out.
I don't think she's a bad guy. She wouldn't have given them the award if that was the case.
Okay, so Dottie, that's the character. She's introduced as the person you have to go to get anything done around here. You have to be on her good side. I have a theory about it, but I'm going to throw it out because I didn't do a slide on it. I actually think that she's a Stark Industry AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I actually think that she's something to do with the environment itself. If you have to go to the most powerful thing in the environment to get something done, it's something along those lines. And Dottie would be in line with My Girl Friday and kind of all the names that Stark came up with for his AIs.
I don't know. I would think, and I'm just going to go out here to say that she's not a bad guy.
Okay.
That because of the giving of the award, the recognition that she offers them completely unbidden. I think that she's saying that they're saying, you know what, she's powerful. Yeah. And she's that, because that's trope too, right?
That would be that, like, she wouldn't be a bad guy in the world that, like, the thing that I'm kind of imagining. But we'll see. It all depends on how it plays out. I love that, of course, she's from Buffy originally, and this is the same episode that they have a bunny in, and that, like, if you've ever watched Buffy, there's, like, a big through line with her character and
Anya's fear of rabbits.
A fear of rabbits, which is really good. They didn't play that up at all, but it was just a nice...
So hopeful.
Well, it's a nice thing to be like, did they know, or did they not know, or was this just, like, a happy coincidence?
So... on the same note, if you're watching and you're a big fan of Buffy like we are, and you're watching the show and Emma Caulfield suddenly shows up as Dottie, looking just amazing for a lady who's like 47 now. I didn't realize that she was 47.
I didn't realize that either.
She's just so wonderful. Anyway, so she appears and you're like, yay, Emma Caulfield, what a great casting choice. And the reason why is because Jack Schaefer, the showrunner, her very first movie, the one that I talked about just, an hour ago, it feels like, she cast Emma Caulfield as her lead in Timer, the movie. So if you want to watch that, you'll see Emma Caulfield is the lead in Timer, and that's the through line and connection. So I think they're using people they know, they trust, they love, and they found an opportunity to put Emma into this show as well, and she just fits perfectly.
And with the introduction of her, I fully expect to see her more, like, in the world. Like, so, because we saw Mrs. Hart again. She was in the audience of the talent show and stuff like that. So I'm happy that these characters aren't just, like, disappearing, but that makes sense because, like, they're probably coming in and getting stuck.
They're serving a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is that happens to be, both plot-wise for the show and also for the, whatever is to happen to move these people along.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Bev, the devil is in the details. Well, that's not the only place he is. Okay, so this one I missed on my first 2 watches, and only when I was going back and, like, grabbing screenshots did I catch this line. I was like, what is this weird line? And this ties back to the whole Agatha Harkness idea, but also, like, she's looking directly at Dottie, and that's where I'm saying, like, Dottie is sus, even if she is, like... even if she might be on the good side. She also is in the know. She knows things, but maybe she's just not able to act on those things. And like, there's so much more going on, and it's like they're trying to hint at there's a combination of things happening, but mostly the most powerful character in this universe is Wanda.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just love this shout out. It was just, oh my God,
Just
so good.
another tick in the box to show you Agatha is Agnes Harkness.
Yeah. And then of course
Or Agnes is Agatha Harkness.
the introduction of Tsuut'ina, Perez. I'm terrible with names, but she's of course playing Geraldine. We know that this actress is also playing Maria Rambeau. That was like put out long before that in a bunch of interviews, etc. So it's like, was who she is changed when she entered the world? You know, she's now Geraldine and she gets pulled into the whole magic show. But I loved how like Wanda was trying to communicate with her and then kept on getting pulled back by Dottie. So to me, that shows that Dottie has maybe some like keep the simulation going. And I also loved that all of this meeting of all of the wives and the women of the neighborhood for the children had a very like down to business, like we absolutely need to do these things or we cannot get you know, this thing accomplished, whatever this is. It's building towards something, and it had a very purposeful nature to the meeting. And you know, that could just be a play on how terrible PTA meetings are, or anything that you have to organize with other moms. Speaking from experience, it can be very difficult. But I also actually do think that there is another layer going on here as well.
It was like so terribly political and catty and not friendly versus Visions, which was like, as soon as you burst down the door and get a laugh, you're in and you're just one of the gang. And it was, we're not here to talk about anything serious. We're not actually doing anything. We're just gossiping and talking about prefab tree houses. Whereas the women are all planning things and then, oh, you didn't describe the chairs? Well, then I won't let you chair another meeting.
Yeah, exactly. It was very catty and of course purposeful, right? But the Stepford wives for the children that happened twice this episode. I mean, it was obviously important. So are they talking about Wanda and Vision's children? That's the question I think that we need to know.
Yeah. I'm really sad they're not naming the episodes.
Yeah.
The same thing with Mandalorian. They're not naming those episodes either. And I wonder if it's a top-down...
Mandalorian named the episodes.
They're just 0.1, 0.2.
No, they're named in the episodes.
Then name these episodes. This one should have been called For the Children. That was a simple one that didn't tell you or give anything away.
Yeah, WandaVision doesn't have names.
Exactly.
Mandalorian does. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I got that. Why aren't they naming these episodes for WandaVision?
Because I don't know. They need a name. It should have had a title or something like
For the Children.
The Children.
Every episode of those 1950s, 60s TV shows had a name as well. So title your episodes, people.
Yeah. It also gives us more to speculate on.
Not that you're watching, but if you are, then thank you for everything you've given us. I want more.
Shout out to the library neighborhood watch scene where their new business was new Danishes.
Yep.
I love how Vision comes in there and he's like, you know, what is your perimeter? What is your security like? What is, you know, how are you making sure that this town is safe? And everyone's like, okay, so we kind of just like to hang out in the library and gossip about people. Which kind of flipped this whole idea on its head too. I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
And you know, the little slips like, I don't eat food between meals. Like it just was really perfect.
And it was exactly like the library from The Music Man or all of those 1950s movies and shows that had that library in it with the second floor and the nice, you know, late afternoon sun coming through the windows. Just brilliantly well done, beautiful setup scene, and the crowd of guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Super nerds.
Yeah, and then like Vision is like, and this guy's a communist. It was like, oh god, it was really It was really awesome. I did just have to call out this joke because it is it was hilarious, and I was not expecting a masturbation joke.
Oh my gosh, right? My kids did not get it. Our daughter is 13, our son is 9. Neither got that joke. I'm hopeful that in a couple years they will, and then I can look at them and wonder, like, how awkward are you going to look knowing there's been a masturbation joke and your dad's sitting in the same room as you? Ha ha ha.
And from my understanding, it's primarily for mastication. It's like,
I don't do that.
no, I don't do that. Such a dying. I died, and the kids were like, I don't understand why you're laughing.
They
that
were still
way.
busy chuckling over the I don't eat
Yeah.
outside of the appointed 3 normal meal hours of the day where I do eat like a machine.
Yeah, exactly. Just shout out to that. And I grabbed the screenshots of the gum going down because I loved that he basically has a little heart.
Little circle where the heart is.
Yeah, and it's got a little
Keyhole.
hole, right? So he can unlock his heart. Oh, and then the gum gets all stuck, and then we get drunk Paul Bettany.
If this is something like I can see a later episode, her having a key, and then he'll be like, oh, what is the key? And she'll be like, oh, this is the key to your heart. Yeah. And that'll be a nice reference for those people who caught the circle where the heart is in the keyhole.
Yeah. I love that the gum is happy going in and then realizes where it's going and suddenly has this look of horror.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so good. So good.
So, and then they get to make a gum up the works joke, which is just delightful.
Yeah, that was cute. It's like they get to use all the cliches and all of the things because it's expected. And it's like, well, why not use those things? They're wonderful too, right? Back to Emma Caulfield. She's like, I don't trust you. And then we get the shot of the radio with help me, Rhonda.
Such a good tie over.
Wow. Because they do something with the audio where it's like, I believe that's Randall Park's voice, who's playing the agent from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah. Who, was in that movie. And they kind of like edit the Wanda over top of the Rhonda. And so it's like, you get the play of both audio is so good. And then, he's like, Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda?
And if Marie Claire says she thinks it's Randall Park, that's 98% likely that it is Randall Park because she's almost never wrong about a voice.
Yeah.
Ever.
I have like a weird audio superpower of knowing these things. But I loved, so it kind of becomes a very intense moment. The radio fizzes out. Dottie squeezes the glass and it breaks in her hand. What? Superpowered woman. Sorry. No, it breaks in her hand and of course cuts her hand open. We can see the blood. So that deep red color that we have continuously been seeing through the show thus far. Wanda's like, oh no, I'll help you with this white linen on there. And then Dottie's like, let me give you a piece of free advice. How does a housewife get
I think she's a like pop quiz.
Oh, pop quiz, Wanda. How does a housewife get blood out of linen? She does it herself. And this is, again, I think a subtle reference to the idea of bringing Vision back from the dead.
It's also just like funny too because she does it herself. She goes off to wipe the blood off, but she didn't lift a finger to clean up after the garden party.
Yeah.
She let Wanda do all of it. And then Wanda couldn't use her powers because Dottie was watching, so she literally had to physically do all of it. And when she sticks out her tongue and scrunches up her nose to the camera, that is exactly what somebody would have done with your back to someone. You're like, and you stick out your tongue away from them so they can't see it happening.
Yeah.
Brilliantly done. Brilliantly shot.
So good. So I do think that there is something going on with Dottie because she's like calling her out and saying, like, I've heard about you and your husband. But it's like Wanda has the ability to delete from the world. Maybe.
She didn't delete Dottie's cut, so.
No, but like delete like the memory of what just happened,
Yes,
maybe,
because
or
we're coming
something.
up to that. We're
Yeah.
coming up to the, that's not the path we're progressing down. You know, you read those Choose Your Own Adventure books when you were a kid and you flew like, whoa, what's the one if I decide to cross the bridge? No, I didn't cross the bridge.
Yeah,
And that's pretty much what happens at a certain point coming up.
exactly.
But first, flourishes.
Oh my God, no. Watch.
Oh, the watch. We have to go to commercial break.
Commercial break.
Well, not us, but WandaVision.
I'm super excited that they're doing these commercials, and it's the same people from the first commercial, and now they're doing the watch thing. And again, you got to listen to what is said, because they say, like, what does a woman need, or what does a man need other than his best gal and a good looking suit or something like that, and his Strucker watch. So again, we have this repeating time motif. Time is running down, or there is only so much time. Of course, the Strucker watch shows, you know, Strucker, Swiss made, Hydra, yeah, okay. So Wanda Strucker made. we knew that. It's just very.
Strucker's an important figure in Hydra because he was the person who was responsible for the creation of their logistics and tech program, which was called Advanced Idea Mechanics. So Strucker is the founder in the comic universe. Now in our MCU universe, the movie universe, Advanced Idea Mechanics AIM is from Iron Man 3 and is created by Killian. And so it's not really, I don't know how they're tying that, but they're showing us here, hey, Strucker's important because Strucker is the one that turned Wanda and Pietro into these altered beings. They're not mutants because they didn't have the right to the term at the time. So he is responsible. He's connected to them. But Strucker is also, we're showing, we're going to throw out here to you to say, a Strucker watch, time is important, mechanics is important, just like the toaster, and that he's connected to AIM, or Advanced Idea Mechanics.
Yeah. So there's more, but we'll get to that. So on to the magic show, which is just wonderful. I would watch that just whole sequence because it's perfectly timed and they do just such an amazing job. And like the whole he's done a feat of strength, and then she's like, and it like changes it up to be a believable magical trick for mortals who can't really understand. And you kind of see them almost waking up with the magic, which is like, oh, okay, so maybe if they see too much of real or the magical, it's like they'll actually snap out of this illusion. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
That's some conjecture right there.
I know.
These people in the audience are real people. I don't know. But it's interesting. Normally these things are done in threes, and there's 5 magic tricks.
Yeah.
It goes on quite a bit of time. This magic show takes a preponderance of the episode, but how could you not when it's so delightful? The card trick with Herb, and he's like Sherman.
Sherb?
Sherman. He calls him Sherman, and then he calls him Sherb, and then he calls him Herb at the very end. Yeah. And I love how the card was the last card in the deck, and he's like, that is my card, it's a good trick, and he's like, whatever, take your card back. Yeah,
I loved when he came through the like, he's coming on stage and he comes through the curtains. That was Chaucer from A Knight's Tale. Like,
the very end when he's like, Dear people, I haven't gotten to make my introduction. And then the crowd goes wild. It was exactly like that.
Yeah, so shout out to Paul Bettany for just bringing back the feels from A Knight's Tale, which was like forever ago, and I feel old. That's fine. But yeah, I loved that they ended up having Geraldine in the box, and it all ended up working out. And then she helps him with the gum, and then they try to sneak away, and they still end up winning a trophy for the children.
Yes.
So
for
weird.
Bringing such delight and humor and such a memorable experience.
Yeah.
Yes, we've done it.
Dottie is sus. I don't trust that woman.
You never trusted Anya either.
No, it's true. It's true. Okay, so the end of the episode, they have
my
the
goodness.
touching moment where they're discussing
There
everything.
are two ends to this episode.
I know. Choose your own adventure, right? They're discussing everything. She stands up, and after the moment that she says for the children, she stands up and she appears to be pregnant. And is this real? And then we hear the crashing again, and they go to investigate. They see the hive keeper come out of the, I guess, sewer.
Yeah, right out of the manhole cover.
Manhole cover.
Climbs out, bees everywhere. Looks really weird.
Bees everywhere.
Sword symbol emblazoned on the back of him.
Yep.
And he turns and look, and you can actually kind of see his face. And he's a credited character in the show.
Oh, cool.
The beekeeper, and it's played by Zach Henry. And you know how, like, in Clone Wars, I always liked to pick on somebody from the show or look at something?
Yeah.
Okay, so Zach Henry. Who is Zach Henry? Well,
oh my God, you have notes.
yeah, I do. Zach Henry is the beekeeper dude. He is also the stunt rigging coordinator for all of the episodes. What is a stunt rigging coordinator?
I assume he coordinates rigging.
He does for all of the stunts. And not just that, but the rigging for the stunts.
Yeah.
So stunt riggings, and a lot of it has to do with rope and proper management of rope. So it's a rather technical thing to get involved into, like, to become as an individual. He started as a stuntman, and he's done a whole bunch of stunts, and now he primarily does the rigging coordination and ensuring safety, in other words, for all of the stunts that occur. And there was a pretty big stunt in here when Paul Bettany just levitates like Vision at one point. And then as well, I think when they do the rope bit as well, that's even more because he becomes unstable on one of his axes. So that's a relevant one there. But it was neat to take a look and see the history of who Zach Henry is, because this guy's been involved like for 20 plus years, going back to like 2001. He did stunts and stunt rigging for Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp. He did the shows Legion, Runaways, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he was also with Mandalorian. So he's been involved with Marvel and Marvel-related things across the gamut of different productions as well. It's just crazy to see. His IMDb list as a proper stunt person would be is really, really long, but it's full of fun and interesting TV shows, just to name a few. So a stunt rigging coordinator, very important profession and role on the show. They do a lot of the technical pieces that relate to safety and assisting in making sure that stunt when the man jumps off the cliff or he climbs the wall or he fires out of a car and comes to his feet is safe and protected, and then build the devices that they need to help that to make sure it happens.
So I wonder if we'll actually get to see him at all or have him talk as an actor, or if he's just like, I'm climbing out of a manhole.
Yeah, he was literally listed as beekeeper, and so I'm hoping that we get to see more beekeeper as we go along. Now,
and
beekeeper, why is that important?
AIM?
Not because of Marvel, because Marvel had nothing to do with beekeeping, but because everybody, when they saw the people in the yellow hazmat suits, they just called them beekeepers. This wasn't a Marvel-initiated thing.
In like the 50s?
Well, when AIM first came out, the yellow costumes.
It's a fandom thing.
Yes. And they've just embraced it and taken it on. So all of the beekeeper references to the AIM employees who run around, and generally they work for like MODOK and Strucker, and they're always the small bad guys in the TV shows and the cartoons that get taken out by the superheroes when they go to fight the big boss. Yeah. These guys were called beekeepers, even though they're usually AIM scientists, because they always had to keep their helmets up. They're like stormtroopers. They're like yellow beekeeper stormtroopers. You never get to see their faces.
I think they called them beekeepers in like maybe Iron Man Armored Adventures. So that's totally. Like how many times it's iterated since then, and now it's just become part of like the vernacular of the world, which
there you go.
And that's like a callback to
this person is an AIM employee, an AIM scientist, because he's a beekeeper, and that is a throw to directly tell people who read the comics that's what it is. I mean, those people who don't know, you're like, that person is sus. If you thought Dottie was sus, that guy, he's a bees and he's climbing out of a sewer, that's weird. And you know what I'm going to say to that? I'm going to say no.
Oh. But AIM is not good.
Right, and that's why we say no.
Yeah.
Which is exactly
and
what Wanda
what Wanda says, she says no. And then we get the DVD, like,
I loved it.
DVD
Record
scratchy, like, rewind until she is...
You mean VHS rewinding
Oh,
stuff? Yeah.
sorry, not DVD. What? No, VHS or beta. It's even older. It's beta. But we get back to this moment where, is this real? And then we see the color come to Vision's head, and it slowly starts to progress throughout the room, including his hand, which I love this moment when he looks at his hand and it starts to slowly change color, and he's finally in color, and
Colorized.
like
Yep.
calling back to that calendar. All this little girl wants is a color Vision. Oh, my heart. And then they kiss, and it's just wonderful, and we get the closing of
Second closing, as it always does.
As it does, but we do not get credits this time. It goes immediately to...
Yeah, so let's talk about the closing, because it keeps doing that same thing where it closes down to a hexagon.
Yeah, I have to speed
right?
ahead if we're going to talk about
Oh,
that.
no, did you have another slide? Also, I wanted to point out there's a coloration difference between the first episode and the second episode in the black and white.
Yeah.
And the first episode is solidly, stably black and white, just like I Love Lucy back in the day, and several others. This one, though, is in almost sepia tone black and white, and I think it's because they filmed it in color. They probably filmed both in color, but then they transitioned it so that they could do this wash over, and they did the whole thing in that sepia tone, because there's almost yellows instead of whites in this black and white coloring.
They did something to do with color.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
imagine the
experienced
lighting.
enough with that to know.
I just can't imagine the lighting that they would have had to achieve and do in order to have this effect, because those colors were just gorgeous.
Yeah, and when it flowed over. Well, let's pause on the exits, because I actually have a slide to talk about that. So then let's go into theory time, speculation time. So as you've been thinking about the toaster this whole time in your head, here's my one theory about what's going on, at least to me, what I think has initiated this whole thing. We know Tony Stark likes to fix the problems around him for people he considers to be almost like his children. And as much as Wanda and him didn't really get along, he probably sat there for 5 years thinking about how much she had lost, and she had like no chance of getting any of that back. Even like, because they had tried to figure out like, hey, could we bring these things back? But he was like, maybe there's a chance I could actually bring Vision back in some form, some sort of backup or something. We know he has a history of giving gifts to people he views to be like his children, and both Wanda and Vision are people he was responsible for at one point. He housed and clothed Wanda and like took care of her in the Avengers compound, and he literally created Vision. Accidentally, sort of. But he created
Vision is his son.
Yeah, Vision is his son. He's the and you know, he was like the product of all of these different people, including Ultron, Bruce Banner, him, and Thor got to name him.
Yeah. Bruce Banner and Tony Stark had an evening, late night in the lab together, and things went a little weird, a little wrong, and
it's fine, not wrong.
9 months later, or 90 minutes later.
I mean, yeah, and then we got Ultron, and but it's this combination, and he always has felt very responsible for Vision, of course, and Vision always treated him like he had to at least tell him where he was and do things that he told him to do. So I think that this was potentially something that Tony started. Hey, here's a gift for you, Wanda. I have now passed on. Same thing that happened with the glasses, with Peter Parker. You know, the Happy's out there distributing all of these like last will and testament stuff. And maybe this triggered something. I do think that Wanda initiated it. I think that people might be trying to influence it. So I don't know that it's entirely Wanda, but I do think that she was the one who maybe started it with whatever Tony did. Because whenever Tony tries to help, it inevitably ends in disaster. So this would be par for the course. Yeah? What do you think?
Cool.
Yeah? Okay.
Cool. My conjecture?
Sure.
Okay. Is that we're still on this
Yeah.
entirely in
I
conjecture land?
have a couple of more slides, but they're more related to Sword and Shield and the other
Okay.
hexagon thing. Yeah.
This is a melting pot of Marvel depth that we're getting in 2 episodes. They do not want us to figure out what the heck is going on. That is clear. They don't want us to be able to
they're throwing
picture
a
this
lot out.
So we have Agatha Harkness, which connects to all the witches stuff, which is directly connected to Scarlet Witch and Wanda.
Potentially
and
Mephisto. Yeah.
And Mephisto plays a real role, and Agatha Harkness plays a real role in the creation of Wanda's children in canon, in the comic books. Of course, we can't say canon because this is a completely different world. This is Marvel 616. So, further, we then get Hydra, we get Sword, and we get AIM. And now we're getting those 3 different organizations thrown into the hodgepodge. And we're getting Randall Park, who's with the FBI, thrown in as well. So we're getting a whole bunch of different things to say, you don't know where we're going with this, don't even try. So I don't really want to try too much because I see all of these things happening that they're giving us teasers and people call them Easter eggs, but it's also just a way to show appreciation to your fans of the long-standing history that these characters have. Where do I want them to go? Well, one, if you're doing all of that already and you're throwing in all this stuff, please bring Michael Douglas into the show because he is in fact the creator of Ultron in the comic books and therefore the grandfather of Vision, and his whole relationship with Vision is very fraught because Hank Pym is a very fraught character. But I would love to see him just show up as Vision's grandpa because that would make it really funny and it would be super fitting. So that was one thing I would like to see brought into the show. Further, can we also please bring in the lead actor of The Blacklist? I can't remember what his name is, like Robert something or other off the top of my head, but he is the voice of Ultron and he's an amazing actor, and I would love for him to come in as like
with Ultron.
He comes in as an auditor or as a politician to like, I'm gonna change the town. Like I could see that, and he would be perfect in this sort of
James
sitcom
Spader?
role. Yes, thank you, James Spader. He would be perfect in this show. So if you're watching and you think, oh, we didn't do that this season, bring me on. I've got great ideas. So that's what I really would love to see added to the show. Where is it going to go? Well, we're going to get kids. We're going to move forward in time. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to get Vision back. And we're going to have Wanda and Vision as solid, stable, important members of the Avengers when the movies return. And that this is something that we get to see as we bring these characters slowly back to like a rapprochement for each other, back from death for Vision. He's an android. You're supposed to be able to kill the android and feel for the android because we can't kill the other characters that can't be built back together. We cannot put people back together. They showed this over and over again in the MCU, which we just watched with War Machine, who has his legs broken and he's broken forever from this point. He has to walk around with the help of the machine. He's in War Machine most of the time. When he's not, he's very frail. But Vision should be allowed to be destroyed and then rebuilt because we have that catharsis when that happens. We show emotional impact when something is destroyed in front of us, but it's okay. We can fix him, just like we do with C-3PO, or just like we do with Red Tornado in the...
And it also leans into the magical and the transcendent to say, hey, your desires were real and we want you to have them back too. And that's really satisfying for me personally as a fan of romance that I want my husband to be alive. Thank you. How do I treat my husband to keep my husband?
Yes.
Exactly. How do you treat your husband? It's probably something to do with like healing him.
Treat as in medicine.
Heal. Yeah. I love this show. Okay. Sorry. Just back quickly. Isn't that toaster Vision's head? It's even got the little round. It's totally Vision's head. Anyways. Okay. Sword versus Shield. Let's do a brief.
Ooh. Do you want?
What?
So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which ran for 5 seasons, went to Marvel and said, we have this idea. We want to take them to space. We want to transition
Yeah.
from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Agents of S.W.O.R.D. And we want to move and do the S.W.O.R.D. thing because you're doing the S.H.I.E.L.D. thing really well in the TV show and in the MCU. Like there's a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. related stuff, Nick Fury, Maria Hill. We can't touch those characters. So can we transition away from S.H.I.E.L.D. into S.W.O.R.D. and go out into space and just get away from what's happening in the MCU? And so it's not, we're not really pushing on each other because we're rubbing up and there's creating hard edges because the two worlds, MCU and ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did not end up touching each other in the end. They're still connected.
That was probably more to do with internal Marvel politics, to do with like the creators themselves. And you'll notice like the Netflix shows are kind of completely separate from and that was just because of a previous agreement between the people who controlled the intellectual property. Where was the line drawn? And that's why the Marvel movies never really interacted with the television shows, and why it's different now is because Kevin Feige is in charge of everything. So that's why it's different. And it's weird that inter-company politics and inter-creator politics would come into that, but it is the truth. It is well documented that these two creators did not get along with each other. I forget his name.
It's not really relevant, but what's important to note is that Marvel said no. You cannot have S.W.O.R.D. You have to stay there. And they said, well, we're going to go to space anyway, just to separate. We're going to go back in time anyway, just to make sure that we're not touching upon anything and it's completely separate in its own world. Great. Good. Now you're done and you're gone. And Marvel probably said, okay, we have S.W.O.R.D. Let's start to do stuff with it.
Yeah.
And so starting in January here, the X universe that's now handled by Hickman, Hickman has released S.W.O.R.D., which is a sentient world reclamation division, otherness. Yes, those are the words. You can look that up more easily than I can. You can Google it faster than I can remember it. But what's important to note is that they are now spending a lot of time in the comic books developing and building S.W.O.R.D. And I honestly think that that's a reflection of what's happening in the MCU from Feige's side as well, is saying, what is this S.W.O.R.D.? How can we make it relevant? Let's move beyond S.H.I.E.L.D., which they've already done in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah.
Because at the end, I don't want to spoil, so I'm not going to say anything, but S.H.I.E.L.D. is now in space. They realized, Iron Man's, we need to build an armor around the world. Why don't we just go out into the world and start, fixing things and talking to people and creating opportunities of truce and negotiation than sitting in the backwoods and hiding. And so it's important to note S.W.O.R.D. is going to play a huge factor in a lot of the movies that are coming forward as Marvel moves further into space, and also connects to how is Earth dealing with outer space.
Yeah, and I think that they might actually switch them and say, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is in space and S.W.O.R.D. is at home or something like that. Like, who knows, right? But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and of course, like, the Netflix Marvel shows referenced the MCU a fair amount. Like, they would talk about it, or they would be like, offhanded comment, connected world. But they wouldn't have crossover, like having Marvel movie characters in the MCU or vice versa. And that's what we hope to see, is that it's a lot more coordinated and a lot more like you can have longer format stories in these TV shows, and then those characters are again seen in movies, and they're able to coordinate that a lot more, because the schedule is like, it was just too untenable. We couldn't organize. Nobody could be in these things. And that was disappointing to a lot of people who were really invested in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they wanted to see kind of some of those people like Quake or somebody, show up at the end of Infinity War, Endgame. And it's fine. Like, that's just what it was. They do exist in the same universe, but it just, the behind the scenes stuff was just a little, when you look into it. Yeah.
But it is the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. Thank you, Claire Hill.
Thank you, Claire. All right. So back to the AIM stuff.
Right. That further bit of what we've got our conjecture. This is what it's founded upon. And AIM has always had that hexagon, which looks just like a beehive cell,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
like-
like they're
it's
just
a
building on the
honeycomb.
beekeeper stuff.
Yeah, and so like each exit is the hex. And the start of the second episode, it actually the stars that sparkle around the moon actually build a hexagon that's just kind of turned a little tiny bit. But it does create a hexagon and it sparkles through all of them. And then of course, you know, if you compare it to the AIM logo, it is what it is. Oh my goodness. So like they've listed they've done the laundry list of like everybody that you know is involved. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, don't worry about it too much. I think that that's what they're trying to say, like to your point, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but I hope that what we've got in these first 2 episodes is that the couples sitcom, right? They have their meeting with the boss. They get the talent show. They never did we'll have a friends over for dinner, and then the friends have a problem that they help resolve that they only realized was a problem for themselves and not the friends. They didn't do that one. I'm hoping that we get into more of the familial sitcom elements when their kids come around. So we know that's coming. That they have their 2 kids, the twins. They have them. They are there. I don't know.
We see the floating soothers in one of the trailers. So and she's super pregnant in probably the next episode. So
So that hopes and leads me to like family ties moments, the honeymooners moments. All of those classic sitcoms that you can see they're directly drawing from those tropes and those cliche settings in order to give us something humorous to watch while giving us something deeper and more meaningful and more impactful to the MCU overall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I do think that like it's not, I mean, to me it's not super complicated to see that this is all, you know, in the purpose of getting Vision back. I mean, everything is directed in that direction.
Exactly.
I think the thing that, like you talked about at the top of the show, the thing that surprised me the most is how sentient Vision is on his own, which it sort of indicates something, I think, in and of itself, is that he is a unique individual, but he's not quite there yet, you know? And I look forward to seeing where this goes and how it gets there. I feel like we deep dived into everything that we could think of. There's probably more out there. There's probably sites out there with all of the Easter eggs, of course, to be like, this is the Marvel things. But these were the things that we thought were most poignant to the story as far as what might show up, be relevant.
We're 100 minutes into 44 minutes of television. So I don't doubt we've covered it exhaustively.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that's everything. So thank you so much for coming out and sharing some time with us, joining us in this conversation, of course, in the chat. And if you're listening to this afterwards, thank you for listening. I do recommend subscribing on YouTube if you want to catch all of the episodes that we will be covering and any other content that we put out, as well as make sure to like this video because we do appreciate it and it helps other people find our live streams. Do you have any final words?
Sure. Hit me up on Twitter at Tavern Tales DM. I'm following Marie Claire and connected to her on all those things. So find me there, and I am going to put up the recipes for our 2 cocktails that we shared at the top, and I will always be posting the cocktails for every episode's adventures. I'm looking so forward to the exploration that this is going to go through.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Marie Claire does to change our backdrop every time, and I'm hoping to reflect my costume in whatever Paul Bettany is wearing in his costume week to week, and I cannot wait to get down with you all next weekend.
And it's all about the love for the show and the creators that they have put forth. So if you want to follow What the Fiction, we're at WT Force Media on Twitter. You can follow me, Marie C. Gould, if you're interested in seeing what I talk about regularly, which is a bunch of random stuff all the time. But most importantly, thank you for joining us, and good afternoon and good evening and good night.
We'll get to that next time.